Oh, hi. Do you know about the Pythagorean theorem? I don't know. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. If you don't, I'm going to tell you about it real quick. I'm just going to zoom in big here so I have some room to write. Yeah, okay. So, um, real quick, just a little side lesson. Let's switch to green here. If you have a right triangle, first of all, do you remember what a right triangle is? It's a triangle that has a 90-degree angle. Okay, so that little box that I just drew in the corner there, that's our symbol that represents 90 degrees. If it's not there, you don't know that you have a right triangle unless it literally says that it's 90 degrees. So, in other words, if you just see this, you have no idea if that's a right triangle because I don't know, maybe that's 89 degrees and not 90. Who knows? But if you see that little box there, that means that it is 90. So when you are looking at a right triangle, every triangle has three sides, but a right triangle is going to have a longest side, and the little corner of the box actually points to that longest side. That's kind of a neat little trick. So that longest side has a special name. It's called a hypotenuse. And that's how you spell it, hypotenuse. Okay, and then the other two sides, they're just called the legs of the triangle. So this would be a leg and this would be a leg. Okay, now it turns out that there is a formula called Pythagorean Theorem, named after Pythagoras, that if you take I'm just going to call the legs, I'm just going to give them each a variable. Let's say that this leg is A units long, this leg is B units long, and I'm going to call my hypotenuse C. Okay, so he discovered that if you take the two legs and you square them both, so if you take A and you square it, whatever that length is, square it, add to that whatever B is squared, guess what? It equals C squared every time. For every single right triangle, if you take the two legs, square them, and then add those squares together, it will always be equal to the hypotenuse squared. This is so cool. I'm actually gonna, if I remember, I'll link to you to a really quick video that shows you this, like them doing it out. It's so cool. It's so neat. They do it with water, the one that I'm thinking of. But anyway, so this is referred to right here. This is referred to as the Pythagorean theorem. And there's how you spell that. Okay, Pythagorean theorem. You've probably heard it before, you might have seen it before, you might have used it before. But if you haven't, now you know. Now you know what all the fuss is about. Super cool. So if I have any right triangle, if I know two of the sides, I can automatically find the third side. So today I'm going to give you the values of the legs. I'll give you both of these legs, and then we're going to figure out what the hypotenuse is. Okay, in the next lesson, we're going to mix it up. Maybe I'll give you the hypotenuse and you have to solve for a leg. Who knows? Okay, so let's see how this works. So let's delete all this and zoom back out and take a look at number one. Also, if you have a calculator handy, you might want it for this one because there's a bunch of decimals involved. Okay, so let's take a look. I have a right triangle, right? So all of these are going to be right triangles. You'll see that they all have little square in the corner there. So if you want to, you can label the sides. So like today I mentioned the side across from the 90-degree angle is that hypotenuse. It's always the longest side of the triangle, and that one always gets represented by the letter C. Okay, always. The other two sides, it actually doesn't matter who you call A and who you call B. You can interchange them because remember, I'm just adding them together. So it doesn't matter if I do 2 plus 3 or 3 plus 2, who cares? So, you're welcome to call that one A and that one B or the other way around. It's C that's important. C has to be the hypotenuse every single time. Okay, so to do the Pythagorean theorem, I'm just going to rewrite it here again. A squared plus B squared equals C squared. All right, I'm just going to fill in the pieces that I have. So A, I've labeled it as the side that's 6.9. So I'll do 6.9 squared plus B is 10.6, so I'll put 10.6, and I need to square it. And C is, they have it represented as X, so I'm just going to put an X squared in there. Do you see how I substituted all those values in for A, B, and C? Okay, now it really just becomes a calculator problem. So I'm going to do 6.9 squared. That comes out to be 47.61. 10.6 squared is just 112.36. And that's still equal to X squared. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and add those two decimals together. And I get 159.97. And now, if I want to figure out what X is, I'm awfully close, right? You guys know from previous lessons, if I have X squared and I want to get X, don't I just need to come in now and take the square root of both sides? You are correct. The square root of X squared is just X. And then I'm just going to ask my calculator to do the square root of 159.97. If you're not sure how to do square root on your particular calculator, just send me a message. You can even just send me a picture of your calculator and I can help you figure out what buttons you would push. So I think, does it say round to the nearest, hang on one second. Round to the nearest 10th, okay. Let's put this back where it was. So if I'm rounding to the nearest 10th, I'm looking at my calculator, that would be 12.6. And a couple of things that I want to point out to you before we move on. Remember that I'm finding the hypotenuse, this side, and the hypotenuse is supposed to be the biggest side of the triangle. So before I even started, I knew my answer was going to be bigger than these two because I'm finding the biggest side of the triangle. So if this number had come out to be something that wasn't bigger than 6.9 and 10.6, I automatically know something's wrong somewhere, right? So if I got like 1.26, if I had the decimal in the wrong spot, that wouldn't make any sense. Okay, that's actually a really great tip if you are taking a multiple choice quiz or assessment or whatever. You already know that the answer has to be bigger than 6.9 and 10.6. So you could eliminate any ones that aren't. Okay, so let's go ahead and try another one. Okay, so number 2. Same idea. I'm going to do a squared plus b squared. Oh, what happened there? B squared equals c squared. Okay, this time I'll call this A and this B. Just make sure that C is always the one across from the 90-degree angle. Okay, and it doesn't matter. You could have done it the other way. Do it the other way than me. That's fine. We're going to end up with the same answer because, as you can see, I'm just adding these two together. So it doesn't matter if you swap their order. So A squared, 14.1. We're going to square that. B is 8. We'll square that. And that's going to equal C squared. So I'll just ask my calculator what 14.1 squared is. That's 198.81. I know 8 squared is just 64. Save myself a little bit of work there. And when I add those two together, I get 262.81. Okay, so now all that's left for me to do is to come in and take that square. Oh, I just remembered something else I have to talk to you about. So in the last couple of lessons, when we took a square root, I made a big deal about how you need the positive and negative roots. So I just took the square root of that. It came out to be 16.2, right? So I'm so glad that I remembered to mention this. So yes, normally we've been putting plus and minus in front of all this. Anytime you take a square root, you need to account for both roots. However, we don't have to do that here. Why? I'm gonna save you. Math is so confusing. Sometimes you do it, sometimes you don't. Well, here's the difference, guys. This value, right? Oh, these are supposed to be x's, not c's. Sorry. X represents the side of a triangle. When have you seen a side of a triangle that's negative 16.2? Right? It doesn't happen. So I can't use both answers. So mathematically, yes, absolutely, negative 16.2 is an answer. However, since it's representing the side of a triangle, I can't use that negative root. So I throw it away. I'm only going to keep the positive 16.2. I hope that makes sense. Real quick, I noticed 16.2 is definitely bigger than my other two sides, so that's a great sign. Okay? All right, let's go ahead and try number 3. Okay, this triangle's drawn in a little bit of a different orientation. That's like, okay, there we go. So always remember, across from that 90-degree angle, that's your value. That's your hypotenuse, that's your value for C. I'll call this one A and this one B. So let's plug everything in. A squared plus B squared equals C squared. A is 12.8. B is 7.9. And C, we're putting in an X. Okay, just rely on my calculator now. 12.8 squared is 163.84. 7.9 squared, 62.41. Add those two together. 226.25 equals x squared. So now all that's left for me to do is to sneak in and take those square roots. So square root of my answer is 15.04. So if I'm rounding to the nearest 10, that's just 15.0. Okay, double check. Is it bigger than my other two sides? It is. So I'm feeling confident about that answer. All right, one more together. All right. All right, that one C across in the 90-degree angle. I'll call this one A, this one B. So A is going to be a 4.9, square it. B is a 12.5, we'll square that. And we're putting in X for C again. Okay, so 4.9 squared, 24.01. 12.5, 156.25. Okay, let's add those two together. 180.26. And now just sneak in, take that square root of both sides, and I get 13.4. Double check that that answer makes sense. Yep, bigger than the other two. Looks good to me. Okay, you guys try the rest. Let me know if you have any questions.